Okay, so it is the morning of the timing chain replacement with BM Minitech. It's 5:30 in the morning and I've got about a 2-hour journey to get there for about 7:45. Need to get there so they can get me all booked in and get cracking at 8 o'clock. Fingers crossed the dart is actually clear. That's always a bit of a nightmare, but we shall see. Here we go. Switch the fan off. Okay. Still a little cold, just running through the gears. 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear. Okay, so I'm back from BM Minitech in Colchester. A really good experience. So I'm gonna basically run through everything that happened, because I think one of the key things that I've seen, there's loads of videos out there that talk about, yep, you need your timing chain done, and then you see mechanics doing the timing chain, and there isn't really anything that talks about a customer experience from one garage. So I am going to see if I can hopefully make it interesting for people. And just to clarify, I'm no expert in this. So I've got bags full of parts to help explain. But yeah, so where I left off, I was traveling to BM Minitech, arrived about 7:30, and then I saw I think the guy who owns it there. And then, you know, you check in at 7:45 and then they start work at 8. But the guy who seems to be the owner is called Tim, and oh my god, he has the world's biggest X5. I mean, whoa, like the wheels go up to my hip. What the fuck? And if you do ever go to BM Minitech, check out his license plate. It will make you laugh. I'm not going to judge, everyone's got their own one, but I feel like N47s have funded that X5, or timing chains have, so he's probably thanking BMW for that. But basically, so you've got him, and there was another mechanic who did the work on my car, and then there's a guy on the desk, I think he was called maybe Andy, could be wrong, and then there was an older chap, or older gentleman I should say, who turned up about 9 o'clock, who I wonder might be the father of the Tim guy. Also, Tim's got a lovely black Labrador, really nice dog, which, if anyone knows what my profession is, I know a nice dog when I see one. So yeah, they were happy for me to sit and wait in the office. And to give you an idea, the actual site is, it's in Essex, near Colchester. Well, it's Colchester, and it's just an industrial site. There is nothing else really around it, bar like an A road. So if you do want to go anywhere, you'd need to get a taxi, and I think that's what a lot of customers do. But I was happy to sit around because I didn't want to miss any of the stages. You're not allowed to be on the shop floor unless you're accompanied, and they will call you out. And they've also sent me loads of videos and pictures, which I'm going to have a look at. So I didn't take any myself. I just didn't want to be that guy. So yeah, the office has Netflix, really handy, just watch some films. And it was super relaxed, like particularly I find when I go to places that are traditionally male dominated, like music shops and stuff like that. It's a classic place where, as a woman, ooh, but they were very respectful, very welcoming, very professional. There was no swearing, just really nice, and I felt perfectly safe there on my own as a woman, which is something that some people might want to factor in. And yeah, so they started the works at 8 and then finished at about 2:15. Bear in mind that I added on some work, so that's why I've got, oh Jesus, I'm not going to be able to pick this up. I've got a clutch here and a flywheel. So yeah, so let's get moving. So the first bit that they called me out for was looking at my old chain in place. Now, I thought they were going to take my engine out, because that's what they tend to do on their posts on Facebook and things on other N47s, but actually they raised the car. I think they had to do work with it on the floor first, obviously disconnecting loads of stuff to get the rocker cover off. But yeah, they actually had the car raised up and then must have pulled the gearbox out, heat shielding, and then the sump, and yeah, you could see it all in place. So there's like a chain that is up the top and then a chain that comes down the bottom, and you've got a tensioner that sits sort of here and then another tensioner that sits here, and you've got guides that sit alongside. Now, when the guy fiddled with my chain, and I've got some pictures and probably videos of this which I'll put in, it was a bit loose, but he said to me, my engine is incredibly clean inside, and he said that repetitively, so I think he probably sees some pretty crappy ones, and that will be from doing oil changes regularly, more regularly than what BMW recommend, so at least every 10,000 miles. Myself going forward, I'm doing them every 5,000 miles because I know how to do them, and we've bought loads of Miller's oil in bulk, so it actually works out probably, 50 quid or something for the oil, and then you've got the oil filter and stuff, and it's really interesting. It shows testament to the fact that any mechanical machine, change the oil regularly. And it's funny how a lot of manufacturers seem to be saying to do like 20,000 mile oil changes. Interestingly, my brother was talking about, he's got a Mercedes, and that they recommend sort of 20,000 miles, and it's just like, don't do that. Whether it's that appeals to buyers, they think that, well, that means cheaper in the long run, don't know, but do oil changes and use a good quality oil. It will pay off in dividends, because the guy was saying the chain is actually in very good shape, but there is a bit of loosening. It certainly would have gone on for however long. He didn't say that, but I think it would. And the guides as well weren't cracked or anything. So they're the plastic guides that sit alongside the chain, and then the tensioners push those in to just keep it snug as it goes round. It's kind of bigger, well, it's like an 8 shape, a peanut shape. And yeah, so that all looked very promising, and I'll actually show you now. I asked for the parts. So these are the guides. I wonder if I can get a bit of better light on this. Maybe come from the front. It's not very flattering for me, but anyway. So, burnt oily smell. The Germans. Yeah, so they're the guides, and what can happen is these get brittle over time and then break off. And if you actually look through some of the posts, they show, I think it's actually an E84 where one of these is broken off. So, got some more guides. So there's 4 of them. Now, later on when he showed me the new parts fitted, they use updated guides that actually have inside like rubber, and what that does is strengthen it, but also has a bit of a dampening effect. So he was saying that actually on the M47 they didn't do very well with their chains, and I think later on they rectified the poor design and it wasn't such an issue. But you know, the thing is that they've made thousands and thousands of the N47 engines, and generally I think they're pretty good, and the guys in the shop were saying the same thing. Right, this is one of the tensioners, and I've got both of them here. So I think this is the top one that you can access from outside the car, and some people do attempt to change this as a short-term fix if you've got a rattling chain. But remember, all you're doing is just pushing that loose chain a little bit further in, because there's an updated version of this which they've fitted now that has a slightly longer part here. I think it's longer by about 2-3 millimeters, and obviously a nice fresh spring that sits inside here. And I guess that must be the hole where oil goes in to allow that to be, ooh, yeah. But basically, if oil flows in there under pressure, I guess it pushes that out. I've just figured that out right now. Anyway, simple enough. I have seen people on YouTube have taken these out and this bit's just fallen off. That's not good. The one thing as well, if you are replacing this from outside the engine, which is really not a good idea, is in order to access this, it's very tricky. And the trouble is if you end up rounding these, oh my God, my brain's fried. I got up very early this morning. If you round off this, then you potentially round off the block. And if that happens, then oil is going to leak out of your block and you're effed. So although it thought like a possibility to give me a bit of time to save more money, I decided not to do that myself, because that seems like a catastrophic no-go. Here's the other one. I am literally picking these out of the bag just now. Oh, that's interesting. Look, there's like, I don't know if you can see that. You can see that the surface of where it contacts the chain is actually slightly rubbed. God knows what the pin does, how this goes in. That one, maybe that's some sort of locking thing. Again, it's got a teeny tiny pinprick hole in there, whether that's where oil goes in and then creates pressure, who knows. There's a hole in the back as well, and that, I don't know, looks like a channel going through. If anyone knows how this works and wants to put that in the comments, don't be a smart ass, just constructively let me know what that does. Smart ass comments are not appreciated. But yeah, so as I say, that actually feels pretty good, but good to have done at the same time. Now, the other thing that the guy was talking about and that they replace is the sprocket. So like a chain on your bike, and where your bike you have this kind of thing, the sprocket, and with your gears and stuff, what he said can happen is the teeth can break off or wear down and break off, and then the chain will slip, and that's really not good for your engine either. Sorry, I look a bit like Casper the Friendly Ghost, too close. So they've replaced that, and it will be genuine BMW. You can see this has got BMW on it. Inspecting this, do I have any signs of that wear? To me, no. Obviously I haven't got the parts that were new next to me. Again, I probably could have asked, but I don't want to be that guy slowing them down, being annoying. And then we've got the chains. Maybe I can make a necklace out of these. Whew. So we've got two chains. One is beefier than the other. Let's have a look at them. Ooh. So I remember seeing on some of the updated chains there was something different about the links, how they're put together. And certainly if you look at some of the non-OEM chains, oh, I don't know, it's the subtle changes, and that's one thing I've learned in the brief time that I've owned this BMW, but it has been in the family, and what I was being told by my my brother is really go for OEM all the time, and I've learnt. I bought an EGR valve that wasn't OEM, and it just isn't quite the same quality. But what happens over time is, I guess, it stretches. Here is the other beefier one. Kind of cool, this. Do you know what? I'm going to stick it in the ultrasonic cleaner and keep these, because that is interesting. So that's where I got with that. So the other thing, when the guy was showing me, actually he showed me this when I had the old chain in place, and I said to him, because I could see behind me I had the injectors out. So one thing I asked him, how were they when he took them out? Was there any leaks or anything? Because I'd been keeping an eye on them, and there wasn't really much dirt around the ports. People talk about something called the Black Death. Why do I have to make it so dramatic? But basically you get seepage of oil pooling around the injectors, and that means the seals have gone. And the seals are, there's like an O-ring gasket and then a copper seal. But yeah, he said that the only one that was a bit harder to get off, was a bit seized, was the fourth injector, which sits furthest away from you as you're looking into the engine bay, so closest to the windscreen. And interesting, that was one that I thought was a little bit more dirty. But yeah, so I could see they were on the side. And I just had a little peek at the copper seals. They actually look fine, but obviously the way that copper is a very soft metal, I guess the idea, once that gets pushed and compressed, and the first time it is used, it then is molded to the lower part, and that's the key. It is effectively a metal gasket. And there was someone who posted on the group about, do my copper injector gaskets look okay? Once they've been taken off, you can't reuse them. They have been formed, compressed, stretched, whatever, to create a gasket there. So no matter what they look like, you're going to have to put new ones on. And it was something I fancied having a go at, but then I read that you sometimes have to ream the inside of the port to clean it and stuff. And I was like, oh, and if they leak, bad time. So actually I was really glad that they do that as part of the whole service package. So yeah, I had a look at the clutch and flywheel, and I asked the guy, how do they look? So one point I want to make is the guy didn't try and upsell me or anything. He just said how they look. So now, they're quite heavy, these. Oh. How am I gonna show this? Let's swing the camera around so I can. Whee. So he showed me. So this is the clutch plate, and then I think that's the flywheel. If I'm wrong, then gentle correction on the comments would be nice. Just be kind. So he said that this is a point where your limit is of how much wear you have left, and he said it's getting close to these little things. And I was saying, oh look, it comes off. Or do you keep it in stock? And he said no, but we can get them within like an hour from our stockist. And I said, well, let's go for it. So I did the clutch and flywheel at the same time, and that's £900. And they don't charge any extra labour for that. Apparently they said that BMW would charge £1,600 for it, and they use the same ones, Luck ones. But yeah, so you can see how much wear is on there. Maybe I can, I don't know what the tolerance are for these things. Let's 0. What's that? It's about about 7 mils. I don't know where you're supposed to measure. Who knows? The other thing that he said was that it was starting to get a little bit of this stuff round the edge of the flywheel, which I guess is the burnt off material. And I was like, yeah, let's do that at the same time. You can see it all caked around the edge here. It almost looks like a brake disc, doesn't it? Maybe that's the idea. This is like a brake pad that goes on here. Honestly, I need to look up how a clutch really works, but my understanding is it's engaging of, you know, the movement. Oh, my brain is too fried at the moment to... What does this say on here? Let's have a look. Getriebezelt. BMW. Oh, look, there we go. So we have LUK. Proof that BMW used those as stock. So in terms of they put that all back in, how did the car feel? I can tell you the clutch, huge difference. So, you know, when I have had a clutch done before on my first ever car, VW Polo back in the day, and it did feel very strange afterwards, very different. But this is a positive difference. This was really nice. So before I was getting, so sometimes when the car was cold, very occasionally if I'm pulling away from like a roundabout or something, it almost felt like a judder or almost like a wheel spin, but it's not wheel spin. And I think that might be a symptom of perhaps it's not engaging properly. And then also, I mean, the E84 has a very heavy clutch anyway, which you get used to. Anybody who gets the car new and they're like, oh my God, and the steering's really heavy, you do get used to it. And actually, you learn to enjoy it. We have here another car, which is a Dacia, and that one's like a little toy car. And actually, when I get back into the E84, I really enjoy that solid feel. But it does take a bit of time to get used to that when you're going around town and your leg can get tired. But I feel like I've got a stronger left leg now. But yeah, so the change in the feel of the clutch. I feel like the biting point is a little bit lower, whereas I used to have to lift up a little bit further. And the only way I can describe, it just feels like, you know, almost like when magnets come together and pull away. You know, it's like that seamless kind of connection and disconnection. There's no friction sensation. It's smooth, it's slick. Whereas before, it just felt a little bit slower, the gear change. I could describe it as clunky, but it's not clunky as in a sound. It's more clunky in the movement. It's just a little bit... And I found particularly this car, when you're going at low speeds, you're moving up those first gears, it's just a bit, I can only say it's clunky. It's not the smoothest, and you know, people as passengers probably feel that as well. Whereas now it feels like, it's just like a magnetic feel. And I would imagine is that because we've got more material, and also they're just in synchrony much better. It's like driving a new car. I've never had a new E84, but I can imagine that's what it felt like when it was new. And if you go back to some of my other posts, I talk about changing the gearbox oil. I think that's definitely something that's worth doing. You'll see that the oil that came out was dirty and really liquidy. It's never been done before. This car has 143,000 miles on the clock, and I think the combination now of new gearbox oil, new clutch, new flywheel, it's got to be as close to probably what it was factory, although I would imagine that the gearbox has probably eased up a bit. Certainly getting into reverse used to be very difficult, and now it's easier, or it may be just me getting used to the car. But if you want to pay money to get a whole new feel to the car, and that It's amazing. It's really nice. In terms of how the car sounds and stuff with the new chain, it sounds different, and I got to factor in that we've got a different type of oil in the car now. I think they use Manol oil. They've got it listed here as LL04 5W30 fully synthetic oil. So, and when I first started, I was like, oh, that's very strange sounding, but not in a like loud, chainy way. That's not good English. Just different. And when I start the car, and I've got some videos of that, you may hear the difference there from the previous ones. It just seems a bit more, what's the word? Quick on the start, or just cleaner. I don't know, maybe that's the injectors. You know, I'd like to think that they gave them a little bit of a clean when they took them out. Could that be a factor? Or if there's loads of crap sitting in the ports. But yeah, it just sounds positive. So yeah, and the car still goes as good as ever. So in terms of total cost, it came to, so that includes, I'll do the list. So we've got camshaft, sprocket, upper tensioner guide, upper guide, chain tensioner, lower timing chain, lower chain tensioner, lower tensioner guide, lower guide, oil filter, oil, coolant for the aircon, regas. All of it came to, now they haven't put the clutch and flywheel listed on there, but came to about £2,300. Well, it's like 333, including VAT. And as I say, if you wanted to get the clutch and flywheel done at another time, I think their labour is about £400–500. But yeah, just like really impressed with the garage. I was really worried that they were going to find something catastrophically wrong with my car, but it's just nice to go somewhere where they clearly care about what they do. And when I was listening to some of the conversations in the garage, the way they were problem solving other cars, I just thought it was very ordered. Yeah, like, and the way that they communicate with each other, you know, they relay it to the guy on the desk, who I guess is then sorting out the pricing and then may update the client if the client rings and stuff. It just was nice, and I'm sure loads of garages are like that. But you know, one thing I would say is, if you're going to get your timing chain done and you're shopping around and stuff, just be wary. Oh look, interesting, there's a little bit of indent on this one as well. Just be wary that the price that they give you, break down what you get included, and is it OEM parts? Because some people I've seen on the groups are getting timing chains redone, and they're going again. Technically it really shouldn't happen, and this place gives you a 2-year warranty and 10,000 miles, but they haven't had any come back, and I'm sure they would tell me. Well, would they? I don't know, maybe they wouldn't. But I'm confident that they're so confident in their work that they haven't had any come back. They've been set up there for 4 years. You know, the guy was telling me about that they do taxi fleets in the town, that some of those cars now do 300,000 miles on them. And they've got these upgraded, you know, parts. And I do feel like if you put the attention into the N47 engine by giving it regular oil changes, give it OEM parts, and get your timing chain done sooner rather than later, because there are probably lots of BMWs dying out there as a result of neglected chains. And you know, if you get it done, it should last a lifetime. And as I say, I travelled in total 4 hours there and back to get this done, and it's worth it, because all the other garages near me didn't give me a breakdown of the costs. They were sometimes double the price. Didn't tell me whether it was OEM or not. Some of them didn't even get back to me. And if you contact BMW, they don't really seem to be interested, whether that's that they don't believe it to be a problem or they are denying it. Anyway, so there you go. What? So you could see there before the chain's replaced the amount of movement in the chain, and it was just showing the guides and the tensioner and just the cleanliness of inside the engine. So that was quite interesting. And that video was after the chain's been replaced, much tighter. You couldn't get any movement there. And I've also got some pictures here of the new clutch in situ, and that's the LUK clutch. And you can see those rivets there, spanking new, really fresh. I was up at 4 AM. Right, so here we go. Let's have a listen under the bonnet.